Captain Zara Thorne stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, her weathered hands gripping the command rail as alarms blared throughout the massive dreadnought. The emergency beacon had been broadcasting for 17 hours straight, cutting through the static of deep space with desperate urgency. "Signal analysis complete, Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Hayes, his voice tight with concern. "It's definitely alien in origin. The mathematical constants embedded in the transmission suggest high intelligence, possibly a distress call." Zara studied the holographic display floating before her. The signal originated from the Kepler 442 system, a region of space that human scouts had marked as potentially habitable but never explored. What troubled her most was the obvious signs of orbital bombardment visible in the long-range scans. "How many ships are we tracking in that system?" she asked. "Approximately 300 vessels, Captain. They're maintaining a blockade formation around the fourth planet. Energy signatures suggest heavy weapons platforms." The bridge fell silent, except for the steady hum of the ship's engines. Zara had commanded the Retribution for 8 years, leading humanity's most advanced warship through countless skirmishes with hostile alien species. But this felt different. The desperation in that repeating signal spoke of something far worse than a simple territorial dispute. "Ma'am," called out Ensign Park from the communications station, "I've managed to decode portions of the message. It's a plea for help. The translation matrix is still working, but they're describing systematic extermination." Zara's jaw tightened. She had hoped humanity's reputation as fierce warriors would deter most aggressive alien species from such brutal campaigns, but apparently, word hadn't spread far enough into this sector of the galaxy. "Orders from command?" asked Hayes. "We're too far out for real-time communication. Fleet Command won't receive our situation report for another 6 hours, and their response won't reach us for 6 hours after that." Zara turned to face her crew. "This is our call to make." The tactical officer, Commander Singh, pulled up a detailed analysis of the enemy fleet. "Captain, those ships are massive. Each one appears to be at least twice the size of our heavy cruisers. If we engage, we'll be severely outnumbered." "What about the planet itself? Any readings on the inhabitants?" "Preliminary scans show a population of roughly 2 billion sentients. Technology level appears equivalent to our early 21st century, maybe slightly more advanced. They have basic spaceflight but no interstellar capabilities." Zara walked to the main view screen, staring out at the stars that held so many secrets. Humanity had learned hard lessons about survival in the galaxy. When the first alien contact had resulted in the destruction of Luna Colony, Earth's governments had united with a single purpose. Never again would humanity be caught defenseless. "Captain," Hayes said quietly, "the Retribution is just one ship. Even with our advanced weaponry, the odds are—" "I know the odds, Commander." Zara's voice carried the weight of command and something deeper. "But I also know what happens to civilizations that can't defend themselves. We've seen the aftermath on too many worlds." She thought of the Vegan refugees they had rescued 3 months earlier, the survivors of another cleansing operation by a species that believed only the strong deserved to inherit the stars. The children's faces still haunted her dreams. "Helm, set course for the Kepler 442 system. Maximum velocity." "Captain, that will take us 47 hours at full burn," reported the navigation officer. "Then we better hope whoever's sending that distress call can hold out that long." Zara activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. We have received a distress call from an alien civilization under attack. I won't lie to you about what we're facing. The enemy outnumbers us significantly, and our chances of survival are minimal." She paused, letting her words sink in throughout the ship. "However, I believe this is exactly the kind of moment that defines who we are as a species. We are not the strongest or the fastest or the most technologically advanced beings in the galaxy, but we are the ones who show up when others need help, regardless of the cost. The response was immediate. From engineering came the steady increase in engine output as Chief Petty Officer Morrison pushed the fusion reactors beyond their recommended limits. The weapons officers began their pre-combat diagnostics without being ordered. Throughout the ship, 1,500 crew members prepared for what might be their final battle. "Ma'am!" Ensign Park called out. "I'm detecting something else in the alien transmission. They're trying to warn us away. They're saying the enemy is too strong, that we should save ourselves." Zara smiled grimly. Brave people. That makes this even more worth doing. As the Retribution accelerated toward its destination, the crew worked with quiet efficiency. The ship had been designed as humanity's answer to the hostile galaxy they had discovered. Every system had been built for one purpose, to ensure that no human world would ever fall without a fight. The weapons array included experimental railguns capable of punching through most known armor configurations. The shield generators used technology reverse-engineered from a dozen different alien species, but the ship's greatest strength wasn't in its weapons or defenses. "Commander Singh, begin tactical analysis of the enemy formation. I want to know everything about their ships, their weapons, their weaknesses." "Already on it, Captain. The preliminary data suggests they're using a standard siege formation, probably designed to prevent any ships from escaping the planet's gravity well." "Good. That means they're not expecting external interference." 20 hours into their journey, the ship's artificial intelligence, ARIA, completed its analysis of the alien distress signal. The findings were sobering. The attacking force belonged to a species called the Hegemony, a collection of allied races that had been systematically conquering weaker civilizations for over 1,000 years. "Captain," Hayes reported, "according to ARIA's database, the Hegemony has never been successfully opposed. They typically use overwhelming force to crush resistance before it can organize." "Well, they've never faced humans before," Zara replied. "What's the status of our long-range communications?" "Still trying to reach Fleet Command, but we're moving away from Earth at high velocity. Signal degradation is significant." Zara nodded. They would be on their own for this mission, just as humanity had been on their own when the first alien attacks began. But that isolation had taught them valuable lessons about self-reliance and the importance of making every shot count. "All department heads to the briefing room in 1 hour. We need to plan this operation carefully." As the senior staff assembled, Zara laid out the tactical situation with brutal honesty. 300 enemy ships against 1. An unknown number of ground forces already deployed on the planet's surface. No backup, no retreat, and no margin for error. "The way I see it," she began, "we have exactly one advantage: surprise. The Hegemony expects their victims to roll over and die. They're not prepared for a fight." Chief Engineer Morrison spoke up. "Captain, I can give you about 6 hours of combat operations at maximum power. After that, we'll need to cycle down the main reactors for cooling." 6 hours to save 2 billion lives, Zara mused. "It'll have to be enough." The plan that emerged was audacious in its simplicity. The Retribution would drop out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, using the star's radiation to mask their approach. They would target the command ships first, hoping to disrupt the enemy's coordination. Then they would fight their way to the planet, buying time for the surface population to organize some kind of resistance. "What about after we disrupt their formation?" asked Hayes. "Even if we take out their leadership, we'll still be outnumbered 300 to 1. Zara's expression was grim but determined. "Then we improvise. Humanity's survived this long by being unpredictable." As the briefing concluded, each officer returned to their stations with specific orders. The weapons crews loaded the railguns with penetrator rounds designed to punch through the heaviest armor. The engineering teams prepared emergency repair protocols for battle damage. The medical bay stocked extra supplies for what promised to be a bloody engagement. In her private quarters, Zara recorded a message for Fleet Command. knowing it might be the last communication they would receive from the Retribution. Admiral Chen, by the time you receive this, we will have engaged a superior enemy force in the Kepler 442 system. I want it on record that every member of this crew volunteered for this mission. We go into battle not because we believe we can win, but because we believe it's the right thing to do. She paused, staring out at the stars rushing past her porthole. Humanity has always been defined by our willingness to stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. If we die here, we die as humans should, fighting for something greater than ourselves. The final hours of their approach passed quickly. The alien distress signal grew stronger, and with it came more detailed intelligence about the situation on the planet's surface. Cities burning, populations fleeing, and a determined but outgunned resistance movement fighting a hopeless battle against overwhelming odds. "Captain," reported the sensor officer, "we're detecting massive energy discharges from the planet's surface. It looks like the enemy is using orbital bombardment to break the remaining resistance." Zara felt her anger rise. Orbital bombardment against a pre-spaceflight civilization was considered a war crime by every civilized species in the galaxy. The hegemony wasn't just conquering, they were committing genocide. "Time to target?" she asked. 17 minutes until we reach the edge of their sensor range. All hands to battle stations. This is what we came here to do." As the Retribution prepared for battle, its crew worked with the precision that came from years of training and absolute trust in each other. They were about to face impossible odds, but they faced them together. The ship's motto, engraved on a plaque near the main airlock, seemed especially appropriate. "Where others fall, we stand." In 16 minutes, they would discover whether that motto was prophecy or epitaph. The Retribution dropped out of hyperspace like a predator emerging from the void. Captain Zara Thorne watched as the tactical display populated with red markers, each one representing an enemy vessel that dwarfed her ship. The hegemony fleet floated in perfect formation around the besieged planet, their massive hulls gleaming with the confidence of inevitable victory. "Captain," whispered the sensor officer, "I'm reading energy signatures I've never seen before. Some of those ships are generating power levels equivalent to our entire fleet back home." Zara studied the formation with the eye of a career military officer. The enemy had arranged themselves in a classic blockade pattern, with heavy battleships forming an outer ring and smaller vessels maintaining close orbital positions for ground support. It was textbook siege warfare, designed to crush resistance through overwhelming firepower. "They're not even trying to hide," she observed. "No picket ships, no early warning systems. They think they own this space." Commander Hayes pulled up detailed scans of the nearest enemy vessels. "Captain, those ships are beautiful in a terrifying way. Look at those weapon arrays. Each one has enough firepower to glass a continent." "Then it's a good thing we're not planning to fight fair," Zara replied. She activated the tactical communications system. "All departments report status." The responses came back in crisp military fashion. Weapons loaded and targeting systems online. Engines running at 112% of rated capacity. Shield generators humming with barely contained energy. 1,500 crew members ready to take on an enemy that should have been able to destroy them without breaking formation. "Area. Analysis of enemy communication patterns." The ship's artificial intelligence responded with mechanical precision. "Captain, the hegemony fleet is using standard coordination protocols. Their command structure appears heavily centralized, with orders flowing from 3 command dreadnoughts to the rest of the fleet. Identify those command ships." 3 massive vessels appeared highlighted on the tactical display. Each one bristled with communications arrays and defensive systems, positioned safely in the center of the formation where they could coordinate the siege while remaining protected by their escorts. "That's our first target," Zara announced. "We take out their command structure, their coordination falls apart. Captain, interrupted Ensign Park from communications. "I'm receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's the same species that sent the distress call. They're asking who we are." Zara smiled grimly. "Tell them we're the cavalry, and tell them to get ready for one hell of a light show." The Retribution began its approach, using the system's asteroid belt for cover. Zara had fought enough battles to know that surprise was often the difference between victory and annihilation. The enemy's overconfidence would be their first weapon. "Distance to target, 2 million kilometers and closing," reported the navigation officer. "Launch stealth drones. I want real-time intelligence on their defensive capabilities." Dozens of small reconnaissance drones shot out from the Retribution's launch bays, their advanced stealth systems making them nearly invisible to conventional sensors. Within minutes, they were transmitting detailed information about enemy shield configurations, weapon placements, and structural weak points. "Captain," called out Commander Singh from the weapons station, "the lead command ship has a critical vulnerability. Their shield generators are positioned on the dorsal surface, probably for maximum coverage, but that means—" "They're vulnerable from below," Zara finished. "Nice catch, Commander. Update firing solutions accordingly." The bridge fell silent as they closed the distance to their targets. Each crew member knew that in moments they would either achieve the impossible or die in the attempt. But none of them showed fear. They had trained for this moment their entire careers. 1 million kilometers, announced the helmsman. "Weapons hot. Lock onto primary target." The tactical display showed the Retribution's railguns swiveling to target the lead command ship's weak point. Each weapon carried enough kinetic energy to punch through armor that could withstand direct hits from conventional explosives. "Enemy sensors are starting to register our approach," reported the sensor officer. "No change in their formation yet." "They probably think we're debris or a lost scout ship," Hayes observed. "Works for us. 500,000 kilometers, entering effective range." Zara took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define not just the battle, but possibly humanity's place in the galaxy. Fire. The Retribution's main guns spoke with the voice of controlled violence. Rail-accelerated projectiles streaked across space at significant fractions of light speed, covering the distance to their target in seconds. The lead command ship's shields flared brilliantly as they absorbed the first impacts, but the sustained barrage quickly overwhelmed their defensive systems. The massive dreadnought shuddered as penetrator rounds punched through its hull armor, sending debris spinning into space. Secondary explosions rippled along its length as critical systems failed in cascading failure. "Direct hits on primary target," Singh reported with satisfaction. "Their command ship is dead in space." But the hegemony fleet was already responding. Alarms blared across hundreds of ships as they scrambled to identify the new threat. The outer ring of battleships began turning toward the Retribution, their massive weapon arrays tracking the human vessel with deadly precision. "Incoming fire," warned the sensor officer. "Multiple enemy ships opening up with everything they have." Space around the Retribution erupted in brilliant flashes as hegemony weapons discharged. Energy beams that could have melted mountains lanced through the void, forcing the human ship into violent, evasive maneuvers. "Shields at 80%, called out the engineering station. "That was just their opening salvo." Zara watched as dozens of enemy ships broke formation to engage them. "Time to show them what a real warship looks like. Target their escort vessels. Hit and run, don't let them coordinate a response." The Retribution dove toward a cluster of hegemony cruisers, its railguns firing continuously. The human ship's superior maneuverability allowed it to dance between enemy formations, striking critical targets before darting away from return fire. "Captain," Hayes shouted over the sound of impacts on their hull. "We've got their attention now. Half their fleet is moving to intercept us." "Good. That means they're not bombarding the planet anymore." Through the chaos of battle, Zara could see the strategic picture developing. The hegemony fleet was powerful but rigid, designed for overwhelming stationary targets rather than engaging a mobile opponent. Their ships moved like dinosaurs, massive and powerful but unable to react quickly to changing circumstances. The Retribution, by contrast, had been built for exactly this kind of fight. Its compact size and advanced engines allowed it to exploit gaps in enemy formations, striking hard and disappearing before return fire could find its mark. Second command ship is moving to a protected position, Singh reported. They're learning. Then we adapt too. Area. Analysis of their formation changes. Captain. The enemy is attempting to create overlapping fields of fire to prevent our hit-and-run tactics. However, this concentration leaves gaps in their planetary blockade. Zara smiled. Perfect. Signal the surface. Tell our new friends to prepare for evacuation operations. The battle continued to rage as the Retribution fought its way through the enemy formation. Human engineering proved its worth as the ship's systems continued to function under punishment that would have crippled most vessels. But they were taking damage, and everyone knew they couldn't sustain this pace indefinitely. Hull breach on Deck 7, reported the damage control officer. Emergency bulkheads are holding. Casualties? 17 injured, no fatalities yet. Yet. That single word hung in the air like a promise of what was to come. Captain, called out the communications officer, I'm receiving a transmission from the hegemony fleet. They want to negotiate. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, revealing an alien face that radiated arrogant confidence despite the chaos of battle around them. The being spoke in heavily accented but understandable English. Human vessel, you have fought bravely but futilely. Surrender now, and we will grant you a warrior's death. Continue this resistance, and we will ensure your species remembers this day with regret. Zara stepped forward, her expression stone cold. I have a counteroffer. Withdraw from this system immediately, and we won't have to embarrass you in front of your entire fleet. The alien's expression shifted to one of amused disdain. 1 ship against 300. Your mathematics are as flawed as your judgment. Maybe, but your ship count is about to drop significantly. Zara cut the transmission and turned to her weapons officer. Commander Singh, show them what those numbers really mean. Target the second command ship. The Retribution's next attack was a masterpiece of tactical precision. The ship approached the enemy command vessel from an impossible angle, using the gravity well of a nearby moon to slingshot past defensive formations. Railgun rounds struck with devastating accuracy, crippling the massive ship before its escorts could react. 2 command ships down, Singh announced. The third one is running for the edge of the system. Let them go. We've made our point. But the battle was far from over. The remaining hegemony ships, no longer constrained by centralized command, began fighting with desperate fury. Some moved to protect their fleeing command ship, while others turned their full attention to destroying the audacious human vessel that had humiliated their fleet. Captain, Hayes warned, they're coordinating a final assault. Every ship in the fleet is converging on our position. Zara looked at the tactical display, watching red markers closing in from all directions. The Retribution had fought magnificently, but physics was physics. They couldn't fight 300 ships indefinitely. All stop, she ordered quietly. Ma'am? You heard me. All stop. Drop our shields and power down weapons. The bridge crew stared at their captain in shock. Hayes stepped closer, lowering his voice. Captain, what are you doing? Zara smiled, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. I'm about to show the hegemony why you should never underestimate a species that survived its own adolescence. She activated the emergency communication channel, broadcasting on all frequencies to every ship in the system. Attention hegemony fleet. This is Captain Zara Thorne of the United Earth ship Retribution. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal from this system before I demonstrate why my species doesn't believe in half measures. Confused alien voices filled the communication channels as the hegemony commanders tried to understand what possible threat a single, apparently disabled human ship could pose to their entire fleet. The 30 seconds passed in absolute silence. Captain Zara Thorne stood motionless on the bridge of the Retribution, watching as 300 hegemony ships closed in for what they believed would be the killing blow. Her crew stared at her with expressions ranging from confusion to outright horror. "Captain," Commander Hayes whispered urgently, "what are you doing? They're going to destroy us." Zara's smile was cold as winter on Earth's polar caps. "No, they're not. Because in approximately 15 seconds, they're going to discover why humans don't send just one ship to a fight." The tactical display suddenly erupted with new contacts. Hundreds of them, appearing out of hyperspace in perfect formation around the hegemony fleet. The newcomers were sleek, deadly, and bore the unmistakable insignia of the United Earth Navy. "This is Admiral Chen aboard the UES Sovereign," came the voice over the communication system. "Hegemony fleet, you are surrounded. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." The bridge of the Retribution exploded in cheers as the crew realized what had happened. The distress signal hadn't just been heard by their ship. Earth's deep space monitoring stations had picked it up as well, and Fleet Command had dispatched the entire 3rd Battle Group to investigate. "But how?" Hayes asked in amazement. "The timing, the coordination, it's impossible." "Actually, it was inevitable," Zara replied, her confidence returning. "The moment we detected that distress signal, I knew Fleet Command would have heard it too. The only question was whether we could buy enough time for them to arrive." Admiral Chen's voice continued to broadcast across all frequencies. "Hegemony vessels, you have 60 seconds to comply with surrender demands. Any ship that attempts to flee or continues hostile actions will be destroyed." The response from the hegemony fleet was immediate chaos. Ships scattered in all directions as their commanders realized they now faced not one desperate human vessel, but an entire battle fleet equipped with humanity's most advanced technology. "Captain Thorne," Admiral Chen's voice came through on a private channel. "Nice work keeping them busy. We've been tracking your engagement for the past 4 hours. Impressive tactical work." "Thank you, sir. What are your orders?" "Secure the planet and begin evacuation operations for any civilians who want to relocate. As for the hegemony fleet, any ship that surrenders will be processed according to interstellar law. The rest, well, they made their choice." The battle that followed was less a fight than a demonstration. The 3rd Battle Group had been formed specifically to counter threats like the hegemony, with ships designed to exploit every tactical lesson humanity had learned in their brief but violent introduction to galactic politics. Wave after wave of hegemony vessels tried to break through the human formation, only to be met by coordinated fire from railguns, missile batteries, and energy weapons that made their own armaments look primitive. The few ships that managed to escape the initial engagement found themselves hunted down by fast attack craft that could outrun and outgun anything in their fleet. "Captain," reported Commander Singh, "the planet's surface defenses are signaling us. They want to thank us personally." "Put them through." The main screen displayed an alien face that was unmistakably grateful, despite the obvious differences in species. When the being spoke, its voice carried the weight of 2 billion lives saved from extinction. "Human ship, we do not have words adequate to express our gratitude. When we sent that distress signal into the void, we hoped someone might hear it. We never imagined anyone would come." Zara stepped forward, her expression softening for the first time since the battle began. "We're explorers, defenders, and sometimes liberators, but mostly we're neighbors, and neighbors help each other. The hegemony told us that mercy was weakness, that only the strong deserved to inherit the galaxy. The hegemony was wrong about a lot of things," Zara replied. Strength isn't about how much damage you can inflict. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice to protect what's important. Over the next several hours, the combined human fleet worked to secure the system and provide aid to the planet's population. Medical ships began treating wounded civilians, while engineering vessels helped repair critical infrastructure damaged in the siege. The hegemony's survivors, roughly 70 ships that had surrendered rather than face annihilation, were processed with the efficiency that came from experience. Their crews would be repatriated to their home worlds with a clear message. Humanity was now a player in galactic politics, and they didn't approve of genocide. "Captain," Hayes said as they watched rescue operations on the main screen, "what happens now? Word of this is going to spread throughout the galaxy." "Good," Zara replied firmly. "Let them know that Earth stands with anyone who calls for help. Let them know that humanity doesn't believe in acceptable losses when innocent lives are at stake." Admiral Chen arrived aboard the Retribution 6 hours later, his weathered face showing both pride and concern. As they met in Zara's ready room, he got straight to the point. "That was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever seen a captain do, engaging a fleet that size with a single ship. It was necessary, sir. Every hour we delayed meant more civilian casualties." "I know. That's why Fleet Command is recommending you for the Medal of Valor." Chen paused, studying her face. "But it's also why we need to talk about what comes next." He activated a holographic display showing the local sector of the galaxy. Red markers indicated known hegemony territories, while blue showed the expanding sphere of human influence. This victory is going to have consequences. The hegemony won't take this defeat lightly, and there are other hostile species watching to see how we respond to threats. "Are you saying we shouldn't have intervened?" "No. I'm saying we need to be prepared for what happens when word of human military capabilities spreads. We've just announced to the galaxy that Earth is willing and able to project power across interstellar distances." Zara considered this. "What does that mean for our exploration missions?" "It means we're not just explorers anymore. Like it or not, we're becoming a military power, and that changes everything." 3 days later, as the Retribution prepared to leave the system, delegations from 17 different worlds requested meetings with human representatives. Some wanted to establish trade relationships, others sought military alliances, and a few offered technological exchanges. "It seems word travels fast in this neighborhood," observed Commander Hayes as they reviewed the diplomatic requests. "That's not necessarily a bad thing," Zara replied. "Maybe if enough species know that someone will stand up to bullies like the hegemony, fewer of them will try it." The rescued planet, now calling itself Haven in honor of the sanctuary humanity had provided, established a permanent communication relay to Earth. Their message, broadcast throughout the local sector, was simple but powerful. Humanity could be trusted to keep its word. As the Retribution jumped back into hyperspace, heading for Earth with news of their victory, Captain Thorne reflected on what they had accomplished. They had saved 2 billion lives, defeated an enemy fleet 300 times their size, and announced humanity's presence as a major galactic power. But more importantly, they had proven something about human nature that would echo across the stars for generations to come. When faced with impossible odds and certain death, humans didn't calculate the cost or weigh the probabilities. They asked one simple question: what's the right thing to do? "Captain," Ensign Park called from the communication station, "we're receiving a priority message from Fleet Command. They want a full debrief as soon as we reach Earth. Tell them we'll be ready to report, and tell them to start preparing for a very different kind of galaxy than the one we thought we were exploring." Hayes looked puzzled. "Different how?" Zara gestured toward the tactical display, which still showed the locations of dozens of species that had requested contact with humanity. "Before today, we were just another young species trying to find our place among the stars. Now, We're the species that other civilizations call when they need a miracle. And how do you feel about that responsibility? Honored, she replied without hesitation, and ready to live up to it. The Retribution continued its journey home, carrying with it the knowledge that humanity had passed a crucial test. They had faced their first major galactic crisis and responded with characteristic human determination. They had refused to accept that good people should suffer simply because evil had superior numbers. In the months that followed, the Battle of Haven would become legendary throughout the galaxy. Species that had cowered before hegemony threats began forming mutual defense pacts. Oppressed populations started believing that resistance was possible. And aggressive empires began to recalculate the risks of expansion when they learned that somewhere among the stars, there was a species that would travel across the galaxy to stop them. The distress signal from Haven had asked for help from anyone who might be listening. What they got was something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that measured its strength not by the fear it inspired, but by the hope it defended. And in the vast darkness between the stars, that hope was beginning to spread like wildfire, carried on the wings of ships that bore the flag of a small blue world that had decided the universe needed protectors. Earth had answered the call. The galaxy would never be the same.